Foster, going down the same route as DaftPina, is a YouTube commentary channel who makes videos criticising other storytime animators' content and their channels, and he has made quite a fan base for himself. I have known of his channel for a while, and we have been quite friendly with each other, and I really do like some of his videos, like his Something Else YT video for example. So it was Sunday, and the first place I went to was YouTube to find some more videos to watch for the day, and that was when I found out his new video on the YouTuber Katzun, one that I had known was coming for quite a bit. It's worth mentioning that while the video was still in the works, I was pretty worried about how it would turn out, given that he was going to be talking about the more iffy parts of her channel, and therefore would do a huge blow to his credibility if he didn't handle it correctly. And to put it bluntly, it fucking sucked. So if you are out of the loop, Foster uploaded a video titled Katzun is a Liar, YouTuber Review, where he reviews both her content and gets into more serious details such as her coming out video, her post-concussion syndrome she got, and a Patreon and Discord server. Katzun is another animated YouTuber with over 588,000 subscribers who makes both storytime animations and sometimes real-life videos, and has collaborated with a few popular figures in this community such as Wolfie Sugar and The Odd Ones Out. I was a little jumpy and excited to see this new video on someone who I really looked up to from someone's content I support, but as I thought before the video came out, there were a lot of issues with his video, and that's why I'll be making this one. Even though I do like Katzun, I'll try to stay as unbiased as possible throughout this video. Even so, there'll probably be some harsh criticisms of Foster. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Foster starts off by saying that she has some stories that he would put under the unoriginal category, such as weird things I did as a kid, artist problems and anxiety. And this is a fair criticism, but a gripe I have with this is that hardly makes much of her channel. And it would be worth highlighting some of the stories that may have been considered more original, such as the Bees video or Dumb Laws, as I haven't seen any videos on those topics. He then says that he'll show the common tropes of a storytime animator.
Now, I will show you the common tropes of an animated storyteller.
Number 1.
They're introverted.
Number 2.
They have some sort of mental disorder, such as anxiety.
I believe that this was the part where people started to find the video objectionable, as there isn't any kind of implication with saying this, even if it is a joke according to Foster. I don't think he was trying to say that she was unoriginal as a result of having a mental illness, but if that is the case, then I can't really understand what the point was in saying it. I assume it's just an observation, but what do you mean when you highlight that, if you probably don't mean she's unoriginal as a result of it? As a result of that, the joke Foster put on isn't as funny, as he seems to say it in such a matter-of-fact way, even if he did throw a meme in there.
Number 3.
They don't animate.
Again, I get that it's a joke, but it doesn't make any sense because she does animate. The bare-bones definition of animation are images that play to create the illusion of movement, and this shows in the tweening between the sprites and the lip-syncing in the videos, so this wouldn't be right. You can say it's bad animation or lazy animation, but it definitely is animation. Continuing on, Foster proceeds to compare her content over time, and he states that
Katzun hasn't changed at all over time.
But after this, he highlights some things that have changed, such as her line art quality, which is a contradiction in what he says. It's also pretty disingenuous to say this, as I've noticed things that have changed. There's tweening between the different poses, the anatomy of her character and lip-syncing animation has improved, and there's an added background instead of a white void like most animators. He then says that
her older animations, which aren't really animations, are very easily compared to her newer animations. If I showed you this clip,
we had to put our dog down recently. Wow, Cat, way to start this video off on a happy note.
And this clip,
everyone gets a little bit anxious sometimes. Whether it be meeting someone new or ordering a meal, people in general can get nervous.
Which one would you think is new?
I think that people would have been able to easily tell that the first clip was in fact the newer video, and there's a couple of reasons as to why this is obvious. The lip syncing in the second clip isn't as smooth in comparison to the first, the hands aren't drawn very well when they're in frame, and the ends of the sleeves are much thinner compared to the start of the arm. However, in the first clip, the aforementioned issues have improved. But if all of that is a joke, as you put in the noise at the end, then why did you say it at all? He then brings up a superficial point that her content isn't great because
it is at the same caliber as some of the other bigwigs of animation, such as Jaden Animation and Sugar.
And even though I don't agree with this, I still see it as a perfectly fair statement. The problem is he doesn't explain why he thinks that, so I can't really understand what he means and what made him think that. The rest of it is him joking and giving a little praise to her for her art style and colours, so I'll be moving on to the next part of this video.
What happens whenever you collab frequently with people who are significantly more popular than you? You become popular off of them from using them in your title, tags, and thumbnail. Just abuse them for all the money and views that you can get off of artificially inflated mediocre garbage content.
And the joke sound follows after this, so I can't understand what he means or who he's talking about. I would assume he's talking about Katzun, but that wouldn't be true because she doesn't engage in such practices. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with collaborating with YouTubers more popular than you, unless they barely feature or they're done a hell of a lot, which I highlighted earlier she doesn't do. So who is he referring to when he says this? It would be perfectly fine if he explained why this would apply to her, at least if that's the point he's trying to make.
But to use them to popularize yourself makes yourself seem like you're only building your channel off of the people that bring attention to your channel. However, when you're only known as that one person who collabs with big YouTubers, you get used to get others subs, and the cycle repeats, where it will feed back and feed until it becomes so saturated and overdone that it will explode whenever it goes past the breaking point.
And I agree with this. A good example of this would be Tim Tom, who only seems to be popular due to associating with the bigger figures in this community, like James and Jaden, and doesn't stand out as much. However, it doesn't make any sense how that applied to Kat, because as I've mentioned before, she hasn't collabed frequently and seems to be doing well enough on her own when she isn't. It's confusing as to who he is talking about and why it applies to her if he is talking about her. Foster then says that he doesn't think a popular YouTuber should have one line and then be spammed in the name and tags, and he cites Katzun's video The Friend Zone, which was a collab with the Odd Ones Out. Again, I agree with this point, but the example he cites is flawed to his argument as he doesn't do one line, but voices two of the characters in the video. That being said, it's kind of objectionable that he's in the thumbnail of the video despite his persona not actually appearing in any of the videos, so I will give him that. Overall, this point was quite disingenuous, and this apparent trend in her collabs doesn't really happen in any of her other 3 videos. I wouldn't consider them barely featured in my opinion either. For the rest of this segment, he talks about how else she managed to get popularity, that being that she's a gay figure, and how it shows in her cringy fan art, and he alludes to one of the important sections of the video.
But when you make a video that's misinformative and just awful, that's whenever you really mess up. And Katzun has messed up a whole lot. We will address that in this section that I would like to call...
And we'll be moving on to that next. This part is rather the main part of this video where he deconstructs Katzun's latest video coming out. The premise of the video is really in the name. He starts off by saying that she's been surrounded by some controversy and that he's contacted some people about it, and then puts a disclaimer that there is a lack of evidence to support his claims, which is important for his next part of the video about the Patreon and the Discord server. He first gives his opinion on the video and says,
Katzun is not the best at giving hope to whom are in the closet, talking about her own coming out story experience without giving people who struggle with this any help.
Personally, I would disagree with this. I think that the moral support she provided at the end of the video and in the pinned comment was good for people in the closet thinking negatively of themselves because of their sexuality. And even just talking about her experiences and the strange feelings she had over the years helped, because at least one person may have these same experiences and are able to relate to it and hence not feel as alone when having these kind of experiences. He gets into a video by saying,
Let me summarize it. First off, Katzun talks about how there's always something forbidden about being gay.
There is always something forbidden about being gay. Maybe it's because it's considered the other sexuality, or maybe because it's considered a sin by some. Either way, it was always this taboo subject that you just can't be.
He then replies to the clip by saying,
Newsflash, Katzun, this isn't Salem in the 1700s. You are falsifying the fact that being gay has its forbidden sides in modern society.
I'm pretty sure Katzun is fully aware of what society is like nowadays, where being LGBTQ+ is more widely accepted than it's ever been. What I believe she's trying to say here is that it still has its forbidden side to some people, like it being something that is a sin, or generally something that bears a negative connotation. The idea that homosexuality is wrong is still accepted by a lot of people, just not as many people nowadays, I assume. Just because it wasn't as widely accepted an idea now as it was, say, 100 years ago, doesn't mean that everyone stopped aligning with these ideas. This is what gay meant to her in the past. Going off my last statement, this story is a reflection of the past. What she's saying is what her life was like around this subject and what she used to think. And that's highlighted by her saying,
It was always this taboo subject that you just can't be.
The obvious words to stress here are the first two. It was. She doesn't think that way now, and this is what her school taught her to believe. He then says that he agrees that it was forbidden in the past, and that she has no idea about what it's like when she's 18 and complaining about this, and then uses an anecdote of his distant grandfather's experience of homophobia. But it was then, and in the now, people of a different sexuality can hardly be treated like that.
Maybe a minimal use of derogatory terms, but I don't want to hear it, Katzun. Don't get all self-righteous.
The problem with this is I don't know what he means by being self-righteous when she's just shown the negative ideas that people held about homosexuality in the area that she lived in, and people probably still do in the current day. In the area she lived, this was clearly a problem. She may have not had the same awful experiences as your grandfather, and he has my condolences for those terrible experiences, but it doesn't mean that she can't say these things. She may have not gotten beaten up, but these experiences definitely took a toll on her emotionally. Foster continues by describing what she talks about next, which is sex education.
Second off, Katzun talks about sex ed, where they were told that being gay is a sin.
And though religion itself isn't inherently toxic, this school was. I remember one of the first times I heard gay was forbidden was in 5th grade when we had sex ed. We had an entire chapter dedicated to how wrong homosexuality was, and how it was a horrible sin that'll send you straight to hell.
He refutes this by saying that in that time many schools were rejecting the use of sex education, especially in religious schools. After that he berates her for not leaving her safe space because she is ignorant towards the current state of society, and then remarks that it's against the law, the Bible, and she'll go to hell for loving Jessica Rabbit. Again, like I said earlier, I'm sure she is fully aware of what society is like in the current day, and she doesn't feel anything ambiguous or ominous about these feelings now. This is what her school taught her and what she used to believe, and she's well aware of how wrong these expectations and ideas were. Another thing to add is that there wasn't any evidence cited to support his claim. However, even if he did, that doesn't exactly mean anything, because just because some religious schools did this doesn't mean that all of them did, or even means that Katzun's did, and I don't think she'd lie about such matters either. He also talks about how she hasn't done anything to help people who are in the closet. Again, refer to what I said earlier on this point. There isn't a need to do this at this point in the video, as she hasn't really finished her story. It wouldn't make sense to do that seconds in. After this, he commends people that have managed to come out.
If you do overcome it, wonderful! I'm glad that you were brave enough to do it. But it's 2018, so I doubt that you'll be burned at the stake, or abandoned by your parent.
And this is partially correct, given that people are generally more tolerant to people who are LGBTQ+. But there's still a chance of horrible things happening to those people for just being that way. Again, it's okay for some, and it isn't for others, but the bad side definitely can't be ignored. For example, the suicide rates of LGBT youth and the rate of being driven out by their own parents, which I'll show on the screen right now. Again, this all depends on the environment and the people that you live with. Maybe it is more widely accepted, but the homophobic ideas haven't disappeared and horrible events like these do happen. So to say that you doubt the chance of these things happen comes off as misguided in my opinion, even if he is trying to see the more positive side of things. It also creates a contradiction as he criticises her for not giving help to people in the closet. So if you doubt that the worst will come for people in the closet, then why do you need Kat to help them? He then says that she doesn't attempt to help people with the struggle of trying to find acceptance in themselves and from others, and no real moral support. Another contradiction is that he acknowledges the part at the end and disregards this because
it doesn't help whenever you don't directly want to help people. It would have helped if you would have told them how to learn from their own experiences, rather than just telling them your own.
And the statement doesn't really make much sense because of how vague the part about directly helping people is. It's really hard to tell what he means by this. Even so, I would personally disagree, as again, the moral support she provided at the end of the video would definitely be uplifting for some people, and talking about these feelings can help others to relate to it if they are going through the same thing. And the final thing to say is that she shouldn't have to say what you take away from this video, as the moral of this story is very clear, and at the end of the day, what you take away from her video is simply up to your own thinking and experiences that shape you. This is the last that he mentions of that video, and next he talks about her old Discord and how it was in an awful state while it was still open. As someone who was in it, yeah, it was. One time mods were everyone tagging the server multiple times every few minutes, and that's eventually what drove me to leave the server. Anyways, he mentions that her server was closed on the 28th of June. Reasons being that according to Kat, the server was chaotic, people complaining about her not being active and people personally attacking her, and lots of them at that, on top of her post-concussion syndrome not giving her a break. He states after that she has post-concussion syndrome, which she talks about in one of her videos, Living with Post-Concussion Syndrome, a video which is no longer public, and he says that the symptoms would have gone after 3 months according to some evidence from Mayo Clinic. The last sentence of this source is important, so hold on to it for later. He then cites the clip saying that she got this on January the 27th and that the video was done on April 9, which is less than 3 months. But now it's October, which is less than 9 months at the moment. He then says,
But that simply is not true based on the facts that I've been seeing. We have
January 27th.
to the end of June, which is almost exactly 5 months, which is an estimated 2 months after she should have recovered, which seems unreasonable.
but after this, he says,
But I will say, maybe it's a special case of hers. But that's quite rare, seeing as it's a very high recovery rate.
and I wouldn't have an issue with him saying this if not for the fact that he wasn't being hypothetical here and said that this simply wasn't true, meaning that he's backpedaling, which is also emphasised by the quote he cited from Mayo Clinic that also contradicts this claim, so there wasn't any point in really mentioning it at all. He then talks about some anecdotes about what caused the server to close down, that being the harsh criticism levied against her. That part isn't really important, so I'll move on to the next segment about her Patreon and how she may have scammed her patrons. He explains that she used to have a Patreon that's now since been deleted, and that he was told that the rewards that were meant to be given were not given, which he took issue with. And I 100% agree with that. Even though I wouldn't have blamed her if it turned out it indeed was, I agree that leaving her patrons in the dust was wrong, and she should have either refunded people or tried to give them their money's worth. That being said, I would end up replying with this over and over for the rest of the video, so I'll end off with this conclusion. So, to end off, Foster's video was a giant dumpster fire, and I was extremely disappointed with it. The critique was surface level and confusing. He has an inability to put what people say into perspective and is quite oblivious to the ugly side of society and the negative treatment of LGBT people, even today. A final thing that bothered me is how he didn't provide a proper rebuttal to the really good comments that people made on his video, which is quite telling of how awful it really was. Anyway, I hope this helped to show why this video was so bad. I'm pretty sure tensions are closing, however I see things getting a little more interesting, especially when Pondus Rocket drops her video on the matter. A final note I suppose, but Foster announced that he would be quitting this community of art/animation critique. I don't really know what it's called, and moving towards more niche content due to the amount of rightful criticism and hate that came to him that he considered. Personally, I don't think he should have quit, because even though I'm a critic of his, I definitely think he has something going for him and has made good videos in the past, and I don't doubt his ability to go back to making that content. Even so, I won't stop him, as at the end of the day, it's his choice to make that change to his channel as much as mine to make this video. And that does it for this video. If you'd like to chat a little more, I have a Twitter where I mess around pointlessly and upload new designs of banners, thumbnails, and profile pictures. And I've got a Discord server that I'd want to somehow revive. DMs are open on both sites as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried to improve the aesthetic and tried to set a style for these commentary videos when I try to start making more of these. I'd like to give a huge thank you to these people for helping out with the script. I'll leave a link to those channels in the description and in the pinned comment, along with other people that have helped out with this video. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one, and until then, have a good day.
You make the sweetest music. You are so good to me. You make the sweetest music. You